Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Red Eyes Creations Radio. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and we are coming to you from the west coast of Sweden. Our website is redicecreations.com. That's REDICE creations.com, where we have more radio archived. You can follow along in our news section. We also have links to our forum, and you can find much more information about our member section, where we have much more material, radio and video, waiting for you. It's good to have you along today. We have James Furia with us on the line. He is a musician and a researcher into a topic he calls geomusic, a fascinating area that incorporates music with geometry and mathematics, and also the alignments of monuments and mounds. And I want to mention there's a big connection between the kind of work that James does and the work of Carl Monk. You might be familiar with something called The Code, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the program as well. James has a presentation of his geomusic, both version 1 and 2, available on DVD. And we're going to have James' website linked up on Red Eyes, but for those who want to go there right now, it's members.aol.com/James Furia. That's James Furia, or just do a Google search on geomusic and you will find it. So with that, welcome to Red Eyes Creations Radio, James. Very nice to have you on the program, and thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I might add there's an easier way to find the web page by typing into any search engine the word geomusic as one word. It'll come up as the first answer. Brilliant.
All right. So, I mean, again, it's great to have you on the line and to talk more about this subject. It's a kind of a topic that isn't highlighted too much. As far as I know, there aren't too many people looking into these kinds of areas, at least not the connections between them. So before we kind of get into the heart of the matter, so to speak, why don't we do like this, that we'll just talk a little bit about yourself first and just your background maybe in regards to music, and then we can get into more geomusic and your findings, James.
Sure. My background in music is, I right now play about 9 different instruments. I taught music and music theory for about 3 years. I learned classical piano at an early age, around age 6 or 7. And, I was a bit of a prodigy, when I was a younger kid, as far as being able to play and sight read. And, I've gone on to do, all sorts of things musically. I'm a professional musician here in Los Angeles, mainly with performance. And I've played with some fairly known rock bands. Chuck Berry, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yes.
He's an oldies kind of guy, and I've played with the Foo Fighters and members of Steely Dan, and sat in with all sorts of people here in L.A. I have a few different bands myself, mainly rock bands, but I play all styles of music. I love all music. I play, world music, jazz, classical, rock, reggae, ska, funk. I mean, any style you could think of. Mainly to get more jobs, if you're versatile. And like I said, I play many different instruments. So for me, music is sort of not really the instrument you play, but the theory behind it, understanding music. And I think, as you said, that this topic isn't touched on very much, probably because there's not very many music theorists that also are interested in science and numbers and stuff. You rarely get people that are into those two subjects.
Yes, correct. And, if you can, outline for people that never heard of you before, or the kind of work you do, break down the concept of geomusic for us, if you can.
Sure. It's funny, many people get confused looking at the web page. They just see geomusic, and they assume that it is actual music. Well, it's not. It's really a theory. And my definition is that it's kind of a word I made up, although I've seen it used before. But geomusic is really a formula that converts music into geometry, and it connects it with sacred sites, such as pyramids and certain earth measures, and of course music theory. So it's something that I've researched for about 5 years. At that time, I didn't have a computer. Computers were first, coming out, but I was going to the library, and I was reading books and checking out 8 or 9 books every week. and reading most of them for quite a number of years. So I did extensive research on what has gone before in this area as far as like converting music into geometry or relating music to gematria numbers. Some people may be familiar with that.
Yes. So this is interesting. How did you kind of get on this track? What sparked your interest to look into this area to begin with?
Well, that's a really interesting story that you probably don't know. It's pretty long, but to give a brief explanation is I also at an early age was highly interested in metaphysics, and particularly a subject called lucid dreaming, where you become aware inside a dream. And I was fascinated with the arts of dreaming and read a lot of books at a young age about dreaming and also all sorts of arcane subjects. So I was just heavily interested in those subjects. And what happened was, in 1994, I had a very strange experience while I was practicing an exercise in lucid dreaming, where I was came in an encounter with a sort of unearthly being, which could be chalked up for, hey, maybe it was a dream, maybe it was a lucid dream, maybe it really happened, whatever it was. I don't think it matters, because the result of that sort of meeting with this unearthly being is what led me towards Carl Monk and the Code and expanding my interest into mainly sacred sites and pyramids. So it's really through a series of symbols and symbols that I was shown that led me on this path to find these symbols and figure out what all this means. And of course, it led me to Carl Monk, and there's another person involved called Shaman Hanna, who's sort of an expert in, he's a cryptozoologist, and he's an expert with gematria numbers, which are sort of sacred numbers. But in short, it's a really much longer story, but in short, I sort of was called to this in a way, or had, let's say, a vision, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
An epiphany, or something that caused me to go into full force with seeking anything having to do with the pyramids. And then, of course, I had heard on television and in books that the pyramid, the Great Pyramid in Giza, contained the equation pi. And my thinking was, and of course Carl had already been on this, but I didn't know that at the time. My thinking was, well, if there's one equation, there's got to be more. And of course, Carl found hundreds and thousands of equations, and I found hundreds myself by studying it. And it's actually mind-blowing that there's all these equations incorporated just in that one pyramid, and in a lot of pyramids all around the world. You come up with these same numbers, like 432 and 144, and these gematrian numbers. Some people call it gematrian.
Yes.
So there's a short explanation there.
Yeah, very interesting indeed, definitely. And, one thing that comes up here, of course, is you mentioned symbolism and obviously, or symbols rather, but I mean, this is a very fascinating area, so to speak, of your research. What is the connection between music and symbols? I mean, for those who just think of it right away, there seems to be no connection between them. But in your work, what you have done is to kind of bridge the two in a way. Isn't that correct?
Not exactly. The symbols was a way for me to find these other people that were working on the grid, on the Earth grid. It was pretty strange. But yes, actually, I have in my video, I have related symbols, very simple symbols to music, such as a triangle or a seven-pointed star. But the symbol that I had seen was a triple cross, and I ended up finding it in the Nazca lines in Peru after looking through, hundreds of books. And that's actually how I found Carl Monk, through the Nazca lines. He was studying them as well. It's kind of an obscure subject, too, is those Nazca lines, but they are in this Earth grid. In other words, if you study them, you come up with these same numbers all over the world. It's repeated, so which leads people to believe, hey, there was something before, history was wrong, there was an advanced civilization. There's no denying there was an advanced civilization here on Earth at some point in time. We don't know exactly when, but it's a fact. And they still can't explain the Great Pyramid, the alignment, or anything. It's, impossible. It's still a mystery. So that really got me going, like, hey, this is a real life, this isn't a sci-fi script or a movie or a TV show. This is a real mystery that anyone can work on and look at if they're interested enough and determine that, hey, this needs to be rewritten. Now, nobody has all the answers. Was it, some people, think, was it aliens, or was it Atlanteans, or was it, just an advanced civilization that got wiped out? I think it's more important to look at the message they left.
Yes.
Was it us in a future time going back in a time machine? I mean, you can speculate and speculate.
Yeah.
But I prefer to leave it an open question. Nobody knows for sure, and more so look at the actual work that they left, look at these numbers, and try to figure them out. So that's how music came into it, was from me being a musician, long-time music theorist, more so, looking at these numbers and went, now, wait a minute, these seem like intervals. In music, you have something called, a fourth and a fifth, and they're intervals. You start on a root, there's 12 notes in the scale, so let's say the note C. I can maybe pull out my piano a little bit later if you want to play, but, if you want to make a chord, you can start in any root. What is really cool about music is in any root note, the root is being, say, a starting note, say C or A or F sharp, any note, it can be used on any note.
Yes.
There is a formula to construct a chord. And then I also started thinking, well, why is it this number? Why does 1.5 equal a fifth? This is stuff that Pythagoras and, and Kepler and a lot of these guys, studied and stuff, but they didn't have calculators back then.
Right.
And now, in these days, it makes it very easy to calculate equations at a fast rate and come up with some more answers. So that's how music got involved by, I guess, me looking at these numbers, and then by a suggestion, one of Carl's colleagues said, hey, what is the most precise instrument ever constructed on the planet? And it's the Stradivarius violin. It was originally tuned to 432. The international standard of tuning is 440 right now, which was set by Johann Sebastian Bach. Well, there's a lot of other people, there's a lot of opera singers in Italy that petitioned to have it in 432. It seemed to be a more natural for their voice, where they wouldn't rip their vocal cords, and of course it fell on deaf ears and it never got passed. But if you change the international standard, which, remember, it's arbitrary, it's not, they just set the, so that everyone can be on the same page musically in the world.
Yes.
They just set it at 440. If you change it to 432, which is more natural, more precise, then when you start with that root note or set your scale or retune your guitar or keyboard to that, all these numbers unfold, and you say, hey, wow, the fourth now becomes 288 and 144, and these same Gematria, sacred numbers that are in the Bible and found, at the Borobudur, the temple, the largest Buddhist temple in the world. There's exactly 432 statues of Buddha, which is funny because the Borobudur, I think, translated means temple of countless statues. Well, if you count them, there's exactly 432 of them. So you find these same numbers at these sacred sites and in music. So, I was going, okay, there's something here, there's some sort of connection to music. And like I had said, I've been on a long break for about 7 years, because when you get more and more into it, and you research that really all life is vibration, that